Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I am joined by my co-host, Michael Hall. We are joined by one of our first guests ever, Mr. Adam Aniba. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Oh, great. It's awesome to be back on with you guys. It's been a while.
Oh, it has been a while, Adam. And first thing I got to talk to you about, because a lot has transpired this week since we have recorded on Monday, but the latest that has happened was Ron Rivera walked away from Blewett, from the kicker that he brought in after he let go of Dustin Hopkins. They re-signed Joey. They bring in Joey Slye, who he knows from Carolina. I'm a big fan of Joey Slye. I've been watching him kick field goals ever since Virginia Tech. I love Joey Slye. He's now here. What did you think of that move?
I think from the beginning they should have probably went with the guy that actually kicked. So I think that the move, but again, to me, they're wholesale changes. Like I've been saying, between that and sliding over Landon Collins to the quote unquote situational linebacker role. These are wholesale changes, but if this guy can come in and actually make some kicks and not get extra points blocked, I'm all for it.
Yeah, 100%. And in recent news, obviously, everyone's going crazy over the recent Chase Young comments about the offseason and then you got to make that money, baby. And so, what are your feelings on that? Do you think that it was him putting up that kind of just like tough man bravado to the media, and really behind doors he's really critiquing and listening to the critiques from the coaches, or do you think that was him just being just immature?
I think there's definitely some level of immaturity to it, but I think you got to be naive as fans to think that has to do with his play this year. To me, I'm not really surprised. A lot of great players hit sophomore slumps, and I'll be honest with you. I'll beat a drum with the coaching is that bad. Jack Del Rio is a dinosaur. Scott Turner, he's just another one who just lacks innovation. Between these two guys, I think when you have talent that performed last year and there's no obvious injury, there's no dramatic scheme change, you have to question coaching and work ethic. So work ethic definitely is on Chase Young, is on the entire defense. But the thing is, if Jack Del Rio is not getting the best out of these guys, then why are they playing? To me, that's how it works. I don't care how much guys are getting paid anything. If they're underperforming or not listening to coaching, sit them down. And so I've seen the snap count go up and up and up for a lot of these guys. So, losing Sweat, man, that was huge, because I think that was the guy I predicted before the year started. He was going to lead the team in sacks with 13. So I think right now they definitely have an uphill battle. But what he's doing right now is probably what any athlete's going to do when they feel like they're backed into a corner. And, I really don't think anything of it. I see it's the talk of the day on Twitter, but honestly, it's a non-story to me.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, like I don't understand what the whole gripe is about. I understand he kind of said it with an attitude, but honestly, do I agree with Chase Young's mindset and what he said there? No, but at the same time, I love his attitude about it. Basically saying, I'm not kneeling down to anybody. This is the way I think. This is what I did, and I don't have any regrets about it. And not only do I not regret it, I'm going to tell you that's why I did it. I love that attitude from Chase Young. He's not bending over for anybody. He is here, and that is who he is. That's why I love it. I would much rather that go down than him lie to us about some spiel about how wanting to be with his family or something. But yeah, you want to go get bread? Go make your money, dude, because we all know from seeing guys like, oh my goodness, why can't I forget his name? Kaishan Jarrett, whose playing career, NFL career, evaporated off of one play, one hit. He can't play in the NFL anymore. I'm not going to sit here and tell Chase Young that during voluntary workouts he can't go make money. That's not how I feel about it.
It's silly.
It is silly.
It's really silly.
100%.
Now, my next question to you, Adam, is Benjamin St-Juste. He's been one of the most productive rookies of the draft class so far this season. He is now most likely out for this game on Sunday, dealing with a concussion. I think it's the second time this season he has a concussion. Are you concerned about Benjamin St-Juste long term with these concussion issues?
100%. Because I think right now we're in the age that this is going to be, watched a lot more, and I think people's jobs are on the line. You have the issues with the trainers. I don't think people are going to be quick to clear him out of any kind of protocol. We saw with Jordan Reed. I think, he probably slipped through some situations that he probably wouldn't have got away with other teams. So I think you really have to watch that. And to me, I think a lot of fans were kind of surprised when we drafted him in the first place in that slot. So I guess my expectations are tempered from the get-go, but it is concerning that this early on he's having this many things. De'Ame Brown too. He's a guy I love. It's concerning with the nagging injuries that we're having, but again, the training issues. I think let's see how the rest of the season goes. If it becomes a habitual issue, I think it'd be ignorant not to think that the whole shakeup in the training room doesn't have at least something to do with it.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with that. And speaking of rookies, a guy that I know you were really high on was Jairus Patterson. You saw him use a little bit more during the Denver game due to a little bit of nickups from Antonio Gibson. Do you think that from the Tampa Bay game on for the rest of the season, we're going to see more Jairus Patterson, or do you think it's still going to be the Gibson-McKissick show?
Well, but Patterson was the first guy I wrote about last year. He was my first prospect evaluation last year. And I always said, later on when they actually picked him up, that he's the guy I look for in the second half of the season. And it was any prediction. I just thought, a lot of times rookie running backs, maybe that's the best time. But I think with Gibson, to me, it's glaringly obvious he's not a bell cow back. And I keep saying, I feel that, losing 10 pounds and getting a lot more reps in the receiver game is probably the best way to use him, at least for now. Get another offseason and see if, he really is that running back. But I think they forced him to be that McCaffrey role. And that's not what he is. I don't see it. I think he's a lot more talented if you get him out in space. I don't think running him from 5 yards beyond the line of scrimmage is his strength. I think I like what McKissick does. I like what Patterson can do from that role. So I think it's inevitable right now with the shin injury that he's dealing with, Gibson. You got to start using the guys more. If it's going to be a three-way, by committee, you got to do something different because Gibson's not going to last 5 more games if they, run him 15, 20 times a game. I think you have to use Patterson, and his low center of gravity, to me, with this offensive line right now, they're in shambles right now. They're just a mixed match bunch right now. New centers, entire new offensive line just switching around. So I think he gives you an advantage in that. And I think a lot of people questioned when he came out of college, his hands, what kind of receiver he would be. He showed in preseason that he's got the ability. So I think get him out in space, a lot more screens, a lot more, just tempo game. Because I don't think Washington can sit there and do 3 5-step drops and run these shotgun runs, stuff like that. I think you have to have high percentage plays, and he works under center. So I think, you just got to get him running more.
Yeah, and the Burgundy Zone is part of the Listen Frederick podcast network. You can find out more about it at listenfrederick.com. Adam, my next question to you is the Washington football team are going up against the defending Super Bowl champions and the leaders in the NFC South, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, on Sunday. The defense for Tampa Bay, they're 13th overall in points per game allowed, 22.9. They're 7th in yards per game allowed. They're 2nd in rushing yards allowed, and they're 20th in passing yards allowed, which is the complete opposite of where Washington's strengths are offensively, meaning that they're really good running the ball, but passing, they really have been depleted in that aspect. What can Washington do to try to have a chance in this football game?
And I'll beat a dead horse, go tempo. If they can go tempo, they have at least a chance to stay in the game. I'm not saying they go back to what they did in the playoffs, because that was really just getting them on the field, running them around. You got to have a game plan. But I did hear Ron Rivera, he was asked about RPO and zone reads, and he's not really fond of it. So that's concerning to me, because I think right now your quarterback talent, that's where you should be using them. I think at least half your plays should be dedicated to option runs and tempo game, because Tampa Bay, they're not going to give them any time to breathe. So for them to have any kind of chance, it's just to keep Tampa Bay on their heels all day. As far as defensively going against Tom Brady, I don't know what to say, because I think their defensive backs just don't have what it takes to stand with him. So I think a lot of things have to go right.
And going to your point there, the Tampa Bay offense, they're number 1 in points per game with 32.5 per game, and they're number 1 in passing yards with 327. And they're the number 1 passing touchdowns offense in the league at the moment. To your point, Adam, they are ridiculous passing the football, and the Washington's defense in passing yards is last in the league.
Yeah, and they have Antonio Brown and Gronkowski are going to be out. The thing about teams like them, they just reload. Whoever's going to come and replace them, good Godwin, I think is going to be a game time decision.
Yep.
That's a big one to watch,
Yes,
because if he doesn't somehow play, they can really dedicate a lot of coverage to Evans and really focus on pin their ears back. But otherwise, if they have to run with those guys, I don't think that they can do much more than rushing for some, stunts here and there. Because I think if you do too much of Brady, he's just going to eat you up.
Yep.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off that, the last question, that last statement. Obviously, this is a high-powered offense, like Kyle said, number one in the league, highest point-scoring team in the league. If there was one person on the offense, obviously outside of Tom Brady, that the defense had the key on to possibly slow this offense down, who would that be? And then likewise on the defensive side of the ball for our offense to prepare for their defense.
Man, their defense is just throwing so much at you. Now, they even got the kid from Washington that they drafted, but they just have so much going on that defensive line, and that linebacking core, I'd argue is probably the best in the league, the way they're playing. So really, it's as a unit, I don't think that there's much you can do. As far as what I was saying, Evans, I think if you can key on Evans in the receiving game, he's their big guy, their big play threat. But that's the thing about Tom Brady. He's just shown it doesn't really matter. If you can, get a little bit of, breathing room, he'll put the ball in your numbers. So I think you try to stop Evans, but then look what Fournette did to them the last time they played, and he hasn't really impressed against most teams. So I think if you can minimize the big runs and just, keep them to minimal gains, stop Evans. But the thing is, I still like their tight ends. Even without Gronkowski, I still really like their tight ends, and tight ends eat up Washington. So there's just a lot of things to really, to cover with this team.
Yeah, and if for all you streamer fantasy football guys, for tight end, I'm telling you, go after Cameron Brate. I can just feel that he's going to have a game. But that being said, I wanted to say my coworker actually played JUCO with Levante David out in Kansas, and the first thing he said about Levante is that he's a film junkie. It's the first thing he transcended to him. Levante always watches film just to give you some insight into Levante and how smart he is, on top of being a fantastic football player. Now, my next question to you here is they're okay. They're really good against stopping the run. But that being said, Washington is getting back Brandon Sheriff, possibly Sam Cosmi at right tackle. But the biggest loss offensive line was Chase Royer, and he's out for the season. And we heard on Monday that most likely it's going to be Wes Schweitzer playing at center. Do you think that is a great plug for that center spot?
I think that's going to be a question mark big time, because I don't think we've seen him or anybody on their offensive line and their depth have extended time at center. So to me, I said that from the beginning of the season. Chase Royer was the guy. I wasn't watching anyone else. To me, he's the most underrated player on the team, and I think I said if he goes down, they're going to have a problem. So they have a problem. Like I said, this is going to be a great litmus test against this defense. And, like you said, we can point them out, these guys experience everything, but once they get on the field and play together, sometimes that chemistry just hits, and, they could have lights out and not allow a sack. And, Taylor Heineke could go crazy. Who knows? But for right now on paper, I'm really concerned, because I think Schweitzer, I like his athleticism. I'll say that. But it's a lot different from going to, an interior line position to straight center and snapping. That's concerning.
Yeah, and speaking of the center, another guy that touches the ball literally on every single play is the quarterback, Taylor Heineke. Obviously, last time he played against Tampa Bay, he came out, pretty much solidified his NFL future off of that game against Tampa Bay. Me personally, I was one of those guys that said they didn't have a lot of film on him. Let's see what he can do going forward. So with that being said, Sunday, repeat match against his defense. Do you see a similar performance with Taylor Heineke, or do you see them slowing him down simply because there's more film on the guy now?
Yeah, passing yards, no way. I don't think he's going to come close to 300, but I definitely think he could see a as good or better rushing performance. I think they have to understand what they have. Like, man, this team, Rivera has to be real, because where is he long-term with Taylor? Like, is this guy going to be, we're going to wait and see how the rest of the season goes and decide if he's a franchise quarterback moving forward? Absolutely not. So what are you doing? Trying to force him to be a pocket passer, I think, is issue a lot of head coaches around the league continue to do, even when it's like inferior talent. So I think the best thing you can do is, I keep saying it, go that college offense route, because I think that's where he thrives. I think that's where they can prepare for Washington, but I think there'll be a lot of situations that they can catch Tampa Bay off guard. Again, the option runs, just get him out in space, because that gives him opportunity. I think when he can throw on the run, that's when he's at his best. If you've got him throwing behind the line, he has issues already seen over his linemen. That's a big issue. I think all the evaluations they've talked about inaccuracy, this and that. I personally, what I'm seeing on the film is he's not seeing over his linemen. There's always issues where I see him, peeking around and trying to squeeze it in, and he's just not getting a full view. So as an offensive coordinator, your job is to open that window. And the only way to open that window is to move the pocket. That hasn't been done. So if they can move the pocket against Tampa Bay, yeah, I can see a similar performance, just not with the passing yards. I can see them making plays downfield, but they're going to be key in Terry McLaurin all game. So if they're doing that, I'm not sure who can step up with, all the guys they have out.
Yeah, and look, speaking of quarterback, everyone that knows you, Adam, you're a big draft guy. And last night, Matt Corral faced off against Kenny Pickett from Pitt. Two guys, quarterbacks that – Sam Howell, I'm sorry. Matt,
I know.
Wrong one. Matt Corral, Sam Howell, the same thing. Same guy. White guy, you're Ben Affleck. Or Matt Damon, whatever it is. But my question to you is, do you have a favorite because most likely Washington, who did have a scout at that game last night, where do you think Washington should go with that quarterback position? Have you looked into it? Who is one of your favorites for the draft coming up?
My question.
I put a primer out with it was Corral, Willis, and Pickett because I was like, I'm going to start with, the three high-rated guys. And, I did a full evaluation on Malik Willis, which is when I do a full player card, that's a full season of up to date, which is 9 games. And I really like Malik Willis a lot. It's funny. People look at one game and now they're like second, third rounder. It's hilarious because come draft time, this is a Trey Lance situation. I'm telling you guys right now, he has more experience than Trey Lance, and I think he's actually more explosive. Hold on. He's been in Washington.
You also gave. I remember back before the draft. You also said San Francisco was trading up for Trey Lance. I'm not sure if you remember saying that here, but you did.
I did. That's when everyone was talking about Mac Jones.
Yep.
And not that I was poo-pooing Mac Jones. I just said no. I know Shanahan, and that's what he does. Unfortunately, I'm starting to know Rivera, and I don't think that's what he's going to do. I think even though Cam Newton's not the same kind of guy, I think if he was looking to do anything like that, I think we would at least seen him being signed for insurance, even though he was kind of expensive this kind of week. So I'm not surprised that, he might have priced himself out, but I'm starting to believe right now, to be honest with you guys, Kenny Pickett is looking more like the kind of guy I could see Ron Rivera looks at. Think about the era in football he played. This guy just broke Dan Marino's record at Pitt. But those are the major, the top guys everyone's going to talk about. But I've been turned on to, Western Kentucky film guys. And I'm going to tell you, there's this receiver down there that's Jairus Stearns. He was just, really popping out of all the film. And what happened is their quarterback, Bailey Zappe, he's just come out of nowhere. I think we saw the situation with the Jets right now and their quarterback, same school. I actually evaluated him a few years ago when he was coming out. But I think Bailey Zappe is a better quarterback. He's a transfer. He's going to be 23 when the draft comes. But that's a name that everyone needs to watch right now is Bailey Zappe because, I don't know if I'm saying Zappe or Zapp. We'll know when draft comes around. It tells you the proper pronunciation. But right now, you mentioned how, there's a couple guys. Desmond Ritter's going to continue to come in this conversation. And there's going to be a couple small school guys that I talk about too. But for the right now, those are the core. But the narrative that this is a weak quarterback draft, I don't know if it's as good as last year. I'm not going to claim that, but I can sit here and pick certain players and compare them to who went in draft, considering Lawrence, Wilson. Those guys aren't looking as good as they were last year this time. So just everyone needs to keep that in perspective. But Washington, I don't know if they're looking for that athletic, option quarterback. But like I said, I brought up Malik Willis first. That's the first guy I did because I see so much Michael Vick in him. And if you go to my site, the burgundygoldreport.com, there's a YouTube on there, and literally he throws the same, he runs the same, but his stats are double of what Vic put up. Granted, it's Liberty, but the similarities are there. I don't know if it's going to really translate, but those are the guys I like right now.
Well, remember back then, Michael Vick and Virginia Tech, before they got big with Michael Vick, they were in the Big Ten, so they were going against less superior. But I will say, when I watch Malik Willis, dude, it has nothing to do with the color of his skin, but I see Lamar Jackson, dude. They literally looked exactly the same. Run heavy more, but he can sit in the pocket and throw the football. Yeah. But the one thing I will say is Lamar's brain and his leadership and how smart he is what really separates him from Malik Willis.
I agree.
I don't think that they're anywhere near.
I agree. That's why, and you know what? It wasn't just the YouTube that I put up there and the similarities, the throwing motions, the mechanics. It's exactly like you said. It's the way they view the field. Willis views the field differently. That's why at Louisville they would, switch the tackles. He could do, a lot of different things. But the thing about Willis it's going to take a little time. But unlike Michael Vick on that level, he actually coming from Auburn in the SEC level. Freeze, he really, got a relationship. He's learning a lot of concepts that will translate. And again, all I'm trying to get to is people are poo-pooing him off that game against Matt Corral. Like, it wasn't a 50-0 blowout. He showed some grit in that second half. It's early, but yeah, these are a couple guys that I think are going to really surprise. They're going to be top 10 guys. Everyone thinks that all the defensive guys are going to stay where they are. These quarterbacks are going to move. It says, supply league right now for QB. So you got to look at them.
Yeah, it's a QB-driven league, so QBs get pushed up every year, so it's bound to happen. And as far as Malik Willis, I definitely think that he has great potential. And look, a lot of people said Lamar Jackson wasn't accurate coming out of college as well, and look what he's doing now. So if he can work on his accuracy, get better and better as the rest of the season goes on, and then when he gets into the league, I think he's going to do great things. And you mentioned Ron Rivera earlier. A lot of people in the fan base, which is kind of crazy to me, they were calling for him to be coach of the year last year from what he did, even though it was a weak division, but still won 7 games with that roster. All of a sudden, halfway through this year, he's the worst coach in the league. He needs to be fired. He doesn't know how to coach. He doesn't know what he's doing up there. So what's your view on Ron Rivera a year and a half into his tenure?
I just wonder about some of the delegation. I don't know. I hate bringing it up because it happened when, KOC was here, the other coordinators. Like, how much is the head coach involved with the offense? And I don't think Ron Rivera, optics show he's not really getting involved with it, but I gotta wonder because some head coaches like having offensive coordinators they're familiar with because they can help dictate. They might call their run plays, they might do this, and there really hasn't been a lot of discussion on the pregame with that. But I don't know right now the way it's going and the fact that they're not making any kind of changes along the way. He supposedly has all this power as, a general manager, even though he brought in general managers, but he has the role of, a franchise builder.
He has final touch.
I don't understand how you go into the trade deadline and you don't even make one move. Like, I'm not talking about Aaron Rodgers. That wasn't never going to happen, but something, going for a receiver that, 4th round, like something like that. To me, that's why a lot of fans are going at each other because I think the team is not showing that they're really trying to do anything in the season because I think not that Taylor Heineke deserves to be benched whatsoever, but I think during the bye week you had to consider bringing someone else in, right? Because Fitzpatrick looks like he's going to be done for the year. You've got Allen behind him, and everyone, if you liked Allen so much, I think we'd be seeing him. So there's something about Allen he doesn't trust.
Yep.
So, if it wasn't Cam Newton, well, why wasn't someone else? So I guess it's the lack of moves, the lack of adjustments. But as far as the other stuff, he's had to really do so much damage control. That's when he got coach of the year. Between cancer and the damage control, I think that, I understand the whole thing. But as far as the 7 wins last year, I think to see the defense go from where it did last year to now, that's what's concerning. That's what's unexplainable to me. And, the whole curse thing that continues to fill up my TLs, I don't know. Sometimes it's hard to explain because how does the defense drop so dramatically so quickly?
Yeah, well, look, one thing I will say, I think Ron Rivera handles his coaching staff like he does his players, meaning he allows them to do their job. Yes, he does press them on things that need to happen, but he's never going to do that publicly because last year, this is a very unique situation. With going through cancer, Jack Del Rio took over, Scott Turner was running the offense. They did well, so it's hard for Rivera to come in here second year and say, look, this isn't going well, change that. Right. That's the only thing I will say. But my next question to you, speaking on that, Adam, I have this charged up question for you. Last season, at the same exact time, Washington was 2-7. So my question to you is, the same exact time, I'm telling you, a year from today, 2-7. They are 2-6 at the moment. Are they worse off this year than they were last year?
Those remaining 4 or 5 games, the NFC East games, which gives me honestly some real hope. That's why I don't think anyone should throw it in because the chance at getting the way Dallas is playing right now, I think people should see that Dallas is doing what they do. Heading to November, December, they start to show their colors. So I think with that stretch, I think Washington I think anything could happen. So yeah, I think they could definitely do it because this division to me is not doing enough to say that you have to get 10, 11 wins. I think if you can get 8 wins, 9 wins, I think that'll probably take the division this year. Will Washington do that? I don't know. It doesn't seem likely, but I can see it happening.
Yeah, and then one of the last questions that we have for you, Adam, before we wrap up out of here. What would you do with Curtis Samuel? Obviously, he has a groin injury coming from the offseason in the summer that came into was prolonged him out of training camp, out of the preseason. They rushed him back, I think it was week 3, 4 against Atlanta, I think it was. And then he goes out, gets put on IR, and now here we are. And it looks like he's still injured. So what do you think they're going to do here? Do you think there's more to it, that maybe it is a worse injury and they're going to get surgery? What do you think's happening right now?
I don't know. I think when not that he's old, but when you start to see these injuries for, these vets that have been in the league, 3, 4, 5 years, it's concerning. The money I looked at, I don't have the exact over the cap, but I'm looking at it, and it's not that crazy to get out from under it. So I think at least they put themselves in a position, and it's the same with Jackson. That money isn't crazy either. So if they feel that they want to move on from those two guys next year, they might have to eat some, but I think they have options. What they did do is they didn't put themselves in cap hell like Snyder did in the past. So that's where I think fans should have some hope, between, the upcoming draft and the amount of money that they're expected to have with the salary cap skyrocketing. I think that they can definitely make some moves. And that's what I'm saying. Don't give up on Ron Rivera so quick. It's just like, is he the worst? No. Is he, even in the middle right now? No. I think we have to see them, put a couple games together that'll, just give hope that, like, hey, he coached his ass off that game. But right now, yeah, he needs a couple wins to, I think get the fans, talking again. But right now, again, it might be a little early, but I think it's never too early to really talk about some of the draft guys. We're 9-10 games in. I think you've seen the bulk of what you're going to see. So after this, it's just going to be draft analysts putting their swing on it. But, I like just, be in the midst of it, talking about it while it's going on.
Absolutely. Now, Adam, the last question I have for you. This is a big matchup this weekend. Tom Brady, that's the revenge game for Washington after that playoff loss. And defense completely went back to what they were in the beginning of the year last season and allowed Tom Brady to run roughshod on them. Do you think that's going to continue this weekend? What is your prediction for the game on Sunday?
Unfortunately, I do think it won't be pretty. I have Tampa Bay getting at least 30 points in this one. I think Washington, they can make it a little interesting in the second half when Turner probably decides to go tempo. They'll put a couple touchdowns late, but yeah, I think it'll be close, similar to the last matchup as far as scores go. But I don't think Taylor Heineke will have nearly as good a day passing. Hopefully, he can keep the turnovers under control. But I think with Brady, man, right now, even at his age, there's just no real answer, because you bring the pressure, he's going to eat you for breakfast. You try to sit in cloud and just cut him off, I think he gets you underneath. So they're going to need some mistakes. They're going to have a couple things go their way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Can't thank you enough, Adam. And, you were one of our first guests, and I've loved bringing you on here to get your mindset and what you think about things. I really do appreciate you taking the time. I know you just started a new show. So just in case anybody watching does not know where they can find you on social media and want to be able to come find your work, where can they find you?
Yeah, definitely check me out. Always on Twitter at the B&G Report. And as you mentioned, B&G Report Happy Hour is just a show in my attic. Just talking about, Washington draft beers, just started on YouTube. So go follow that. Otherwise, all my content, the Burgundy and GoToPort.com. Just check me out.
Absolutely. Adam, I can't thank you enough, sir. I hope you have a great weekend. Enjoy it. Kick your feet up, have a booze or two, and enjoy that game on Sunday, sir.
You too, guys. Hail DC.
All right, Adam. I'll see you, brother.
Hey, easy.
It's always good to hear from Adam, man, from the beginning. Our guy, from the beginning.
The day ones.
Yes, and speaking of day ones, our guy, Florida Skins fan Sean, I guess when he doesn't feel like causing Twitter to go up into chaos by posting his opinions, he has some questions for us. And the first one, I'm going to go to you with this, Hall. He said, do y'all think Sean McVay could have replicated what he has done in Los Angeles had Washington kept him over Jay Gruden?
I guess it would depend on the personnel, but I would say yes, just because, you saw what he did with Jared Goff. Jared Goff hasn't won an NFL game outside of being with Sean McVay. So with a quarterback of that stature, obviously Jared Goff is not like a bum, but he's definitely he's one of the lower tier quarterbacks if you're ranking them tier by tier. So for him to be able to get the most out of Jared Goff, make him a Pro Bowl quarterback, get him to a Super Bowl, I definitely think that I don't know if it would have been obviously Super Bowl bound team like that, but I definitely think he would have kept us around an 8, 9, 10 win team I mean, which obviously Jay Gruden, he kind of kept us around 8 wins anyway. So I think it would have been maybe a game or two difference
Yeah,
had he stayed.
I'm not really sure about 100% that, so I'm going to need some reinforcements on this, all right? So you know what? Let's call in my guy, put out the bat symbol in the sky earlier tonight, and my man Parker Hamlett from Sidelines, Washington, saw the call, and he came running at us. So, Parker, thank you so much for joining us, sir, and we have a fan question I want to get your opinion on. First being, if Washington would have kept Sean McVay as head coach instead of keeping Jay Gruden, would he have replicated what he's doing in Los Angeles here in Washington?
You know, first thing my brain automatically goes to. First of all, thank you guys for letting me join you on such last minute notice. Hall, good to see you, man. Glad to chop it with you guys as always. But I have to say, with different teams, there's also different markets. With Odell Beckham Jr., you know, it was very alluring for him to go to LA, get under the big lights, get the national spotlight back on him after, you know, he used to the lights in New York. Then you go over to LA. It's very easy to sit here and point fingers at everybody that we've let go over the years. But do I think Sean McVay would have replicated that in DC? No. He's his own man over in LA right now. He's got a different arsenal of weapons. And like I said, different market, you know, a very competitive division. I mean, obviously an offensive masterclass, Kyle. And, you know, I'm not sitting here trying to take anything away from Sean McVay and everything he's accomplished over there. But at the same time, it's hard for me to say that he would have been able to do the same thing here in DC. As we know, even a man the caliber of Ron Rivera, it is a very long hill to climb being head coach of the Washington football team and off the field.
One thing I'll say before you go, Hall, real quick. We also have to measure what the social atmosphere was at that time. Jay Gruden was a first-time head coach still here. Most likely, Snyder would not have gone immediately to another first-time head coach in Sean McVay with no prior experience, with very little as offensive coordinator. And that's why him going to Ron Rivera, the kind of solidified veteran who's been in the league a long time, been in the Super Bowl, that's why it made sense, that kind of step up. It would not have made sense for them to do that, in my opinion. What were you saying, Hall?
No, I was going to say, I actually was just sitting here thinking about it, and I went a little bit more in depth, like in my mind. I don't think he would have been the same here because – in order to do that, you're going to have a guy like a Les Snead type of GM that's going to be aggressive, that's going to be willing to be like, you know what?
And ownership.
Mortgage.
Because they're selling that stadium.
Ownership. And I will say, Dan, being an actual fan of this team, probably would have been aggressive, but would it have been –
He'd allowed him to make
moves.
Would he allowed Sean to make his own decisions?
Exactly. And obviously everyone's going to put Les Snead 1,000 miles ahead of Bruce Allen as far as a GM goes. So I just think that we would have won some games. Offense would have definitely put up some numbers here and there, but overall, like I said, thinking about it, we wouldn't have been able to be that aggressive with a guy like Les Snead, Stan Kroenke. Those guys are all in, and like you said, who wouldn't want to go out to LA and live in LA? So that's part of it also. Yeah,
and then Sean's last question for us. I'm gonna leave this with you, Parker. He wants to know, with a presumed top 5 pick in next year's draft, which college prospect do you see Washington taking at the first pick?
You know, I feel Kyle and Hall. Everybody's got a different answer. You know, if you look down the timeline, it's Kenny Pickett. Everybody's obviously gonna look at a quarterback. You kind of look around the roster, and to me, this is the biggest question mark going into the offseason. You could make arguments for every other position, but if Washington football team doesn't turn the ship like they did last year, this time being 2-6, then obviously the number one obstacle this offseason is getting that quarterback, and the question is who. And I guess that answer is dependent on who you ask. Personally, I'm a very big Sam Howell guy. I have been the longest. You know, I've been to UNC games, seen him up close and personal. I like a lot of stuff I hear from him. But like I said, Kenny Pickett's another popular guy. But, you know, the quarterback conversation is one that's going to be happening plenty this offseason. But to me, it's hard for me to say any position other than quarterback. What about you guys?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I do think it's quarterback. They've kind of shown this with Ron Rivera that this is what they're going to do, because I said it after the draft last year. With how many quarterbacks went in the first round, with all the trade-ups, there was going to be less likely teams that are in that top 5 that aren't going to need a quarterback, like the Jets, like the Jags, they're looking terrible right now. They're going to have a top 5 pick. They're not taking a quarterback. So Washington is going to be in a very good position just based off of last year's draft on not having to trade up to go get a quarterback like, let's say, Kansas City did. They can just sit and wait and let it come to Lamar Jackson with Baltimore. One of those kind of QB draft classes is what I feel like it's going to. And honestly, besides quarterback, I'm not really looking at it, Sean, because I feel like that is the only thing that they need to be doing long term because we have been stagnant. We haven't, you could say Dwayne was kind of giving us hope for the future of the quarterback position. That was short lived. We need that. And a guy like Kenny Pickett, I absolutely love, especially because of the experience. Making sure he's seen a lot of football at the D1 level is very important, in my opinion. What do you think, Hall?
Yeah, I'm definitely I've always been a Sam Howell guy. I've liked him going back 2 years ago. I liked what he was doing. So I know his numbers are kind of down this year. His play's been kind of down, but when you lose a guy like De'Ami Brown, who's your number one target, your deep threat, your number one touchdown scorer outside of your running backs, you lose both of your running backs, Javonte Williams and Michael Carter. Your offensive lineman gone out the door, or pretty much a brand new offensive line. So he hasn't looked as like Sam Howellish as he did last year. But I definitely think that
Howellish.
Sam Howell. I also like. I know, right? I like Kenny Pickett as well. Only thing that scares me is his hand size. Yeah, to NFL, obviously.
What is it? Less than 9.5 or something?
Yeah, it's like 8 1/4 or something like that.
Cleve told me.
Oh yeah,
big.
I did see that.
You see him looking like Teddy Two Gloves out there, wearing two gloves all the time. But yeah, that's the one thing that really scares me. But he's a really mobile guy. He's an accurate guy. But again, I'm a Sam Howell guy, and if people are talking about De'Ami Brown, like when is he going to get unlocked? What is he going to be that downfield threat? Well, what better person to come in than your college quarterback, the guy that kind of put you on the map, the guy that kind of, like I said, put you on the map, made your name in college as far as like you're a top tier receiver. So I definitely think that Sam Howell has the arm. He's a mobile guy. He's a tough kid. He can run the ball. He tuck your shoulder down, take a hit from a linebacker or two. So, and I think he's an all around good leader. And when you're being coached by a legend like Mac Brown in college, I think that goes a long way as well.
It does, but I will say the Dwayne and Terry thing kind of blows that out the water. By the way, I feel like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Hey, that's a very good point.
So our next question is from the Colonel, and also yesterday was Veterans Day. Happy Veterans Day, sir. Thank you so much. And the first question I'm going to ask you, Hall, because it's about your boy. What's the deal with AG's fumbling? Does he have some kind of injury we don't know about?
I mean, he has a shin injury, so everyone kind of knows about that, the shin splints. I mean, look, the dude would play wide receiver in college. He kind of like one of those kind of open space, out in space guys. And if you look back even in college, he was always kind of a guy that ran with the ball out here, kind of like playmaker, kind of get jiggy with it, shaking up. So
getting jiggy with it.
I mean, it just comes down to discipline at the end of the day. Like, obviously, they're teaching him to hold the ball high and tight, hold it with two hands, but really it just comes down to AG just being more disciplined. And we had Logan Paulson on, and he said that when you have shin splints, pretty much taking a step is like walking on knives every time.
Well, no, he had splints in his foot.
In his foot, yeah.
So, he was saying it was like that, but it's like basically imagine that in your shin. But
exactly.
It's still not fun.
Like, either way, it's nice. But so I definitely think that maybe that's taken away some of the focus as far as like ball security, as far as just his focus on the field, as far as like making the right cuts, hitting the right holes. So if it continues, obviously this year, I'm not going to say this year's a wash, but if it continues, it might be a problem. But I just think that once he gets a little bit more healthier, fully healthy, if you want to call it that, maybe even going into next year, if it's still a problem next year, I'll call it a problem.
Yeah, look, I love Sam, but I don't think the shin has anything to do with his fumbling issues. It's a concentration thing. I know the injury thing, but when you're playing football, dude, this is the last thing you're thinking about. The adrenaline's running. You're not feeling anything, to be perfectly honest, especially most likely if he's up there, they gave him something to make sure he doesn't feel. You know what I mean? And it is a concern. But at the same time, Tiki Barber, who was a horrible fumbling guy, and AP, who had fumbling issues as well, got better at it. There's things technique you can do to get better at it, and that will happen with AG. It's just unfortunate because this team just finds ways to lose games, and you want to harp on it, you want to bash on him for it, but he's a young kid, man. He's got to learn. You got to protect the ball. Ball security is job security, right, Parker?
Absolutely, and for me, that's my number one sin with running backs is ball security. That'll get you out of the building faster than you can say AG. And I offer you this. For me, a thing that I kind of consider, some people considering or saying that, AG made some people saying along the way that maybe AG should have been shut down for the season due to his injury. Maybe, everything's kind of in vain with them being 2-6. You look back to last year, similar, but we're in a different climate here in the NFC East. AG notably throughout the season has not really been practicing normally. So taking a lot less contact. So, your street clothes throughout the week and then playing on Sundays, that limited amount of contact he could possibly be getting could kind of be a rhythm thing. Ball security, I feel like some of that stuff really couldn't go hand in hand. So I feel like it's a lot of irregularities with AG this year with him having to combat that injury. And it's kind of hard for him to be synchronized in anything with just so much going against him. And it just kind of feels like a lost season, like Hall was saying. So
I will say, if he's not practicing that much, then he better be standing on the side with a football in the perfect spot, and make sure you tell him if that ball hits the ground, you got to do 50 push-ups every time. Carry that, take that home with you, bring it in with you. If I ever see it on the ground, 50 push-ups. Hopefully, that is what's happening. Now, the next question from the Colonel is going to you, Parker. I want to ask you. He wants to know, what is more likely, the Miami Dolphins upsetting the Baltimore Ravens or Washington upsetting Tampa?
I was watching the highlights of that Miami Dolphins and Baltimore Ravens game last night. Great defensive game plan by the Dolphins, by the way. I think that was the most pressure Lamar has faced his entire career, and that's also the least amount of points that Baltimore scored.
Brian Flores is no joke.
Absolutely. He's a authoritarian, a lot like Ron Rivera. I personally thought that loss would be a little bit more of a shocker than us being Tampa Bay. People are going to act like it's eons ago, but, we gave Tampa Bay a run for their money in January. And, you ask Taylor Heineke, it's the same deal. There's a lot of the same cast on both sides, except you look on Tampa Bay's side of the ball, not to get into it a little too early, but look at Tampa Bay's side of the ball. They got a lot of key starters out. I know the Washington football team's still got a lot to come back from. You got some key pieces returning, but I think the Washington football team has a little bit more of a puncher's chance in their matchup than I would have thought a Jacoby Brissett-led Dolphins team would have against Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. Is that fair to say? I mean, I that's just my take.
No, it is fair to say. And, ever since this whole Vegas and betting gambling has gotten involved with the NFL, I find myself picking the underdogs way more than I should, just simply because what if things are fixed? But I'm not saying they are. I don't think they are. I'm just saying that would be awesome if that happened on Sunday, because that would make a whole lot of people money, because I'm going to be willing to bet there's not many that are going to be putting money on Washington to win. Oh, no. Now, what do you think, Hall?
Yeah, I definitely think it would be more of a surprise if Washington won, based off the fact of Brian Flores is a great defensive mind. Not saying Jack Del Rio is not a great defensive mind, but as you can see, he schemes up his guys to come on blitzes, a lot more exotic stuff going on the field. He's making adjustments as the game goes along, and to be frank, we haven't really seen that from Jack Del Rio. It's kind of been the same old bland, kind of vanilla defense throughout the whole year. And at the end of the day, if you look at the Ravens season, I mean, they've lost the nail biter to the Raiders the first week of the season. They had a 68-yard field goal to beat the Lions. So they've been on the verge of kind of losing it. They had a 14, 17-point lead, come back against the Vikings this last week. So they've been on the verge of kind of coming down back to earth, taking that L. So it was only a matter of time. I'd
be willing to bet that they were overlooking Miami.
Oh, yeah.
Based on how their game was on Sunday, yeah.
That's what I got out of watching that game, was that Baltimore just did not come to play. I don't think that they thought Miami had that in them, but you look at this team a year ago, this Miami Dolphins team was extremely competitive. Kind of a bad situation, them not making it to the playoffs, kind of some bad luck there. But like you said, Flores coaches those guys up, man.
Yeah, they obviously had a plan in place, prepared, ready to go. It almost seemed like Baltimore just ran in there just to say, we can run over you, it doesn't matter. Now, our next question, I'm going to go to you with this, Parker. And this is from our guy, Big Tony Shivers, on their Discord chat server. Thanks, Tone. He wants to know, what are your thoughts on the Rams signing everyone, including OBJ?
It's like polar opposites. I mean, we're over here in Washington not wanting to mortgage the future, and the damn Rams don't have a first-round pick till 2030. So two very different types of organizations being run. You got to love it. They go out and get Matthew Stafford, outbid us. I don't think he would ever came here anyway. Can't blame him for wanting to be with McVay. And good on McVay for trading up and getting Goff out of there and not wasting any more time. And, of course, they go and get Von Miller. You already had a very talented offense with the Rams, but they just upgraded in every single way that they could because they think that they can win now. And certainly a win over the Super Bowl champions this year, and a convincing one at that, makes OBJ putting that pen to paper a hell of a lot easier, doesn't it? So I love everything the Rams are doing over there, and sometimes I wish we would do it here a little bit more in D.C.
Yeah,
So.
look, I mean, I respect them for being ballsy with it and being so aggressive in their direction of trying to get the Super Bowl. I absolutely love it, but I feel like it's playing with fire. It can get you burned very quickly. We learned this from the Philadelphia Eagles when they had solidified themselves as a super team. When you build through free agency, it seems like that's a house of cards. When you build through the draft, that is a sustainable, actual foundation and house that you can live on. And that's what I'm kind of worried about with the Rams. I mean, I said this in our group chat a couple times. I hope they win. They better win the Super Bowl. I mean, because if they don't, I mean, obviously, look, I don't mean to crap on West Coast fans, but they don't care about football as much as we do over here. I mean, they could literally lose in the first round of the playoffs, and there wouldn't be that many Rams fans that are pissed off about it based on expectations because they're not that big out in the West Coast. For some reason, every game is caveated for them. But what do you think, All?
Yeah, I love what they're doing over there. Like Parker said, I kind of wish that we would do it here. Not obviously we're not in the position to like go all in win now mode, but if we ever get to that position one day, hopefully in the near future, I wish that we would kind of just push all the chips in and be like, let's go in on and get the guy that's going to get us over the hump. But as far as like I said, like we talked about earlier, you got to have an aggressive owner, an aggressive GM, an aggressive coach. All got to be working in sync to kind of make those type of moves. And look, at the end of the day, people keep talking about it's going to come like to bite him in the butt eventually, blah, blah, blah. That is very true. But if you keep on adding that window, it's closing, open back up. It's starting to close, open back up. And as long as the window's open, you got a chance. So they're putting themselves in a position to have a chance every single year.
Yeah, now one thing I want to say, I know that everyone keeps having these terms and phrases for the coaching staff. And look, man, I have never been to that level. I've never done or executed anything to the level that they have, and I won't ever be saying stuff like that. You know what I mean? I'll have opinions on other people, but for those guys, I mean, Ron Rivera did not have to come here. He took the challenge, and he was like, yeah, I'm going to go to that place that nobody wants to go to under that owner, and I'm going to turn things around, and I'm forever grateful for that. I just want to put that out there. Like, that's my dude right there, and I feel like everyone
I have something to say about that, Kyle. I went back and listened to one of our pods last year by this time. I think it was right when we lost to the Giants, the Riverboat Ron game. And it was you, me, Andy, and a bunch of guys. And it was probably the most pessimistic podcast I think I'd ever heard. But there was one outlier in that, and that was you. You were telling everybody to stay the course, trust the coaching staff, and lo and behold, you were right. And, I sometimes I think everybody as a fan of this organization, because of everything that's gone wrong, needs to remember that we should really be grateful for everything Ron Rivera is trying to do here. Just because we're not getting instant results right now doesn't mean that the foundation isn't being set. So I just want to take a moment to say that because that's something I've always thought since that moment.
Yeah, and because like when you're trying to build the organization, when we talked to Sal from Buffalo, he talked about having the same people, the good people inside the building, and building that one direction that Hall had referred to. And unless you have continuity and consistency in that aspect, you're not going to get that. And I know that everyone's pissed off in their second year. The team has regressed in their mindset. But look, this is building. This is what happens. It's not a finished product yet. It's going to come. Just sit down and shut up. Now,
look, everyone keeps talking about the Buffalo Bills. Even Ron Rivera talks about the Buffalo Bills model. And obviously, yes, they had Josh. I almost said Josh Gordon. They had Josh Allen as their quarterback, and they were like building around him. But look what they did their first year. They won, I think, I forget how many games it was. Second year, they took a step back. They went 6-10. And all of a sudden, their third year, they make the playoffs with Josh Allen.
Nearly a Super Bowl.
Yeah, fourth year, obviously they get Stephon Diggs, take off like a rocket. So, look, it happens sometimes, and maybe this is the kick in the butt that the team needed to be like, you know what, they thought they arrived last year. Everyone's hyping them up. You got Mike Greenberg talking about they're the 49ers of this year's 49ers 2 years ago. Maybe they were like reading the press clippings. Maybe they're feeling themselves a little bit too much, and this is that kick in the butt that make them be like, you know what, let's get back to the basics going into next year and start from scratch.
Yeah, that should have happened after the first month, though.
I mean,
now
you
Parker,
would think that, but
yeah, I got you, Parker. The next question I have for you is from our guy Jeff Miles in the Discord chat server, and he wants to know: well, if we were to lose to Cam Newton in Carolina next week, what does that say about our team?
To me, it says nothing about our team because Ron Rivera does not want to be linked to Cam Newton anymore. They had their time in Carolina. They like who they have this quarterback room, and they are looking to the future. And Ron Rivera has said on multiple occasions that if you're not talking quarterback every week, then you're not paying any attention. So Ron Rivera had his time with Cam Newton in Carolina. They made some beautiful moments together, but ultimately Cam should have never left Carolina in the first place, and Carolina proved that this week. they're paying his replacement in Teddy Bridgewater still, and his other replacement just went on the injured reserve. So, I mean, that's a mess. You talk about a bad general manager. Let's talk about what they got going over in Carolina right now. But regardless, I thought Washington not bringing in Cam Newton was never an indictment on Ron Rivera and this coaching staff. I think Ron Rivera is obviously trying to give Taylor Heinicke some time. This is his 10th career start coming up this Sunday, including postseason. So they feel like they have a young quarterback who needs to refine a bunch of things. What his future is here, who knows? But, there is life outside of Cam Newton for Ron Rivera in the National Football League, and I think people need to kind of remember that sometimes.
One thing I will say is this is a win-win situation for Ron Rivera, thinking about it from a head coach and general manager aspect, meaning if leaving Taylor in there, if Taylor does well, great. We're going to be a good football team this season. If we're bad, then we have a top 5 pick and we're getting a quarterback of the future.
Win-win.
Either way, it's a win-win situation. Now, our next question, I'm going to go to you, Hall, with this one. And this is from our guy, Orange Crush 92. He wants to know, in your opinion, how's Malik Hudson doing this season so far?
I actually thought he would get a little bit more time on the field. So in that aspect, I would say not what I thought it was going to be as far as the expectations. But, I mean, he's one of the top special teams guys for our team. He's one of the special teams leaders on the team. So I think he's one of the special teams leading tacklers for the team. So I definitely think that just due to all the guys that we brought in the secondary this year, I didn't think that it was a slim chance he would get on the field. But with that being said, there's been injuries. There hasn't been the play that everyone thought they would get out of all the DBs. So I thought he would get on the field a little bit more. But, I mean, the second half of the season, this is when Jeremy Reeves got inserted. This is when all the other guys kind of stepped up and got inserted into the lineup and started making plays. So you never know.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Now, Orange Crush, I will say, dude, I haven't watched Malik Hudson in particular with detail in a couple weeks, but I felt like he has progressed as an in-the-box linebacker. He was kind of utilized as a space kind of guy, matched up on running backs, tight ends kind of thing, a runner. But when I saw him navigating in the trenches there, being able to wrap up tacklers, get around linemen, his body size actually benefits him there. So I think he has progressed as a linebacker. I would like to see him get more snaps. Obviously, I don't know what his snap count is or how much he has been progressing in snap counts, but I would like to see him more, especially this weekend when Tampa Bay, they love to spread you out. They're a number 1 passing offense in the league. We're probably going to see a lot of Malik Hudson. What do you think, Parker?
Obviously Malik is a situational player for situational downs. And, sometimes he has been in bad situations on those situational downs. And there's been some, plays where they got the best of him. And a lot like you, Kyle, I can't sit here and say I've been watching Malik Hudson in incredible detail, evaluating his performances because, very limited snap count. But, I still see that potential that Ron Rivera and this coaching staff saw in that Viper role, with him coming out of Michigan, I think is where he was drafted from. Overall, I feel like he's still a guy that you can use in a lot of different sub packages and get a lot out of him. Like you said, with that size being in his favor in a lot of, situations and downs. But, then sometimes that size can be a curse and, players get their hands on him, then he's out of the play before you know it. So like I said, as long as you kind of utilize Malik for his strengths, I feel like you can get a good play out of him here and there. But, I feel like as fans, we kind of had a little bit too much expectation for him coming into the season. Whereas, he was always going to be that guy for those sub packages, kind of that special role player kind of guy. So my expectations were never high for him. So I can't really say I'm disappointed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. Now, our next question is from our guy, Scott Hartley in the UK. Oi! And he wants to know, I'm going to keep this with you, Parker. What are your thoughts on not putting Samuel on IR? Is it time to write him off as out for the season?
I think you came on my show earlier in the season, and I asked you if you were surprised that he did not go on the pup. Personally, I thought that this was going to be something that kind of lingered throughout the season. And at the time, that kind of seemed like a dumb question. But to watch how his health has kind of deteriorated throughout the season and all the setbacks that they've had, I feel like it's not as crazy to say that now. Had he kind of had the first 7 weeks of the season kind of just lay back, gets kind of ease him back into practice, ease him back into the rotation, I feel like we'd be talking a different ball game here. I think we have a healthy Curtis Samuel right now, but you can't fault Ron Rivera, this front office's coach staff, for this happening with Curtis Samuel. Pretty much healthy throughout his time throughout Carolina. As Rivera said, it's a situation they're having to be very cautious with because he's in the you talk about the age of the roster and how some of these older guys are kind of seeing their way out, like Brandon Scherf. We got a really young guy in Curtis Samuel, and he is in the plans for the near future. So his long-term health is extremely important in this organization. So, if it were up to me, I would have shut it down a lot earlier than they're deciding to shut it down now. So Curtis Samuel, in my opinion, got to preserve his long-term health for this football team because, go back to Atlanta, 3 of his 4 catches were first down. So you're going to need that in 2022.
Yeah, whatever the doctors recommend, that's what you're going to go with. I can see why this is a bad spot for Rivera, where he's a rock and a hard place. Because in the early on in the season, obviously as a head coach, you're going to ask your offensive coordinator, what do we need? What do we need to continue to get you to be better? What can we do to make the offense better? Well, he said, dude, I need weapons on the outside. Well, Curtis Samuel isn't healthy. Should we put we're putting on Pup? We're putting on no, dude. I need him out there. Let's try to get him out there. That can always be a thing. For people to think that Ron Rivera not putting him on IR is just plain old stupid. One of the biggest questions, I think one of the biggest realizations I ever had one time is I got upset at work, and my higher up, Matt, probably said one of the smartest things in the world to me, as I was pissed off because something wasn't working right. And he said, and something wasn't in the right place. And he said, Kyle, calm down. He was like, there's always a reason for why that was done. There is a reason why. Let's find out. Let's go ask him. And when I found out, there was a good reason why. And that's what I'm kind of getting at here. For them not putting Curtis Samuel on, there is a reason for that. And there is some voice in that building said they needed him back, and that's why they didn't do it. What do you think, Hall?
That's such a mad thing to say, by the way.
Yeah.
If it was me personally, if I was the head trainer or Ron Rivera or GM, whoever it is, making that call, I would have put him on IR, or I would have shut him down for the season probably after that Saints game when, like Parker said, he came in that Atlanta game. They played him a little bit more than they wanted to because of other injuries to the wide receiver position. Oh, shit.
What? What's wrong?
I thought I froze.
No, your face is frozen, but your voice isn't.
Yeah. Either way, I would have shut him down after the Saints game whenever he only played 5 to 7 snaps, whatever it was, and then they had to take him out because he tweaked it again. I would have, from that point on, I would have been like, you know what? Just to shut him down, like Parker was talking about. The long-term health of him is better for us in the near future. And they need him on the field to be opposite of Terry if they ever want to get this offense up and running like the way they want to run it. But with that being said, I can also see why Ron has kind of chose to keep him around, keep him on the side, hoping that maybe something progresses and he moves a little bit forward in his rehab. Because at the end of the day, if you really look at the wild card standings, we're only it's just horrible to say this, but we're only like a game and a half out of that last playoff spot, the 7th seed. And when you have 5 games down the stretch, all division games, you get a guy like Curtis Samuel healthy on the field, all of a sudden you pull maybe 2-3 of those games out of those 5. Maybe you're in the mix, you slip into the back door of the wild card. But with that being said, I'm to the point now where, and I said this earlier, I was arguing with our boy in our group chat. I'm tired of the 6, 7, 8, 9 win seasons where they kind of go on a run, get themselves out of like the top playoff spots. And then
being in the teens.
Yeah, they got drafted in the middle of the pack again. I just want a whole reset, get the quarterback that we need, and then build from there and go forward. So would I be mad if they like backdoored into the playoffs on like another crazy run? Of course not. I love my team. I want them to win. But do I want them to also just, okay, let's look at this for the long term. Let's look at this as far as we need a quarterback. The only way to get a quarterback is to be in the top 5 to 7 picks. I'm not saying lose on purpose, but let's just evaluate the young guys and see what happens going forward.
Yeah, and last thing I'll say about this Curtis Samuel situation, another defense in their aspect of Ron Rivera not putting them on IR. Logan Thomas got injured week 1. De'Ami Brown has not been healthy all season. He's been injured. Cam Sims has not been healthy either. So they're going to say, who do you have? And maybe that is why they were trying to get Curtis Samuel back, because they needed weapons in that building. Now, listen to the wrap up this episode, guys. And before I start ripping off all the predictions from our fans on Twitter who submitted what their predictions were, let's go around the horn here, baby. Let's hear what you guys predict for this game going against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Parker, this is the number 1 passing offense in the league. Number 1 in passing touchdowns, passing yards. They are legit through the air, and Washington has the worst defense based on passing in the league right now. How is this game going to go?
So, my co-host Rhea Robinson went on his pod a little bit earlier in the year. We did our predictions, and I only guaranteed 2 wins. One of them being against the New York Football Giants in week 2, and the other being against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady. So, I got to be consistent with it. I got Joey Slye hitting the game winner, 34-31. I think this is a comeback game for the Washington football team. I think they're going to do enough to stay in it. And I think ultimately what really hurts the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, even though they're an excellently coached team, is the injuries. Godwin being a game-time decisions. Mike Evans leading the team touchdowns. He's going to do what he does, and then he'll probably put up a hell of a stat line. Not having Gronkowski. I know you still got Cameron Brate. I know they still have an abundance of riches. But if the Washington goes into that game and plays perfect football, learns from their mistakes, and, the defense is just getting better week by week by week, I really do feel like they can pull out this game on Sunday, and it's very vital to the future of Taylor Heinicke under center, and all eyes will be watching.
Parker Hamlett picking Washington to beat the Super Bowl champion Buccaneers 34-31. That's surprising. Who would be your MVP of that, by the way?
MVP of the game. That's a great question. So, as of right now, Logan Thomas is seemingly a go.
I wouldn't put money on that.
No one's putting money on it, but he is
basically
practicing, right?
On Monday he had worked out, and he was just trying to see getting back into shape. The next day he was sore, meaning that injury is not 100% healed yet. That's why I'm trepidatious about him playing on Sunday. I think it's all cannon fodder, and they're trying to get Tampa to scheme and be ready for Logan Thomas is what I'm thinking here.
I just feel like there are so many moving parts. Of course, there's a lot of things going wrong with the Washington football team right now. Montez Sweat being out, but this also means some different guys are going to get some reps in. And who knows if some of those combinations might not lead to better results for the Washington football team. Not having Logan Thomas is definitely a blow. And, I think if he plays, I think a lot of people, I think that minus 9.5 will close in a little bit more. But I personally, just in my gut, I feel like we have some unfinished business with Tampa Bay, and I feel like Taylor Heinicke and this offense can do enough if the defense shows up and continues to trend upward like they have the last couple weeks. I know it's ballsy, but this just I've had this weird feeling about this game since the schedule came out. So I'm going football team.
And I think a couple weeks ago somebody asked us what is one surprising win that you think that this could come out from this season. I'm just like you, Parker. I picked it to be Tampa Bay. So I do think that they can beat Tampa Bay. The lowest they can when they keep it as low as they can, the points scored, that's when they have the best chance to win. If this gets to above 24 points, I don't think Washington has a chance. It's all based on the defense having a complete reversal of what happened in January and strapping up because, like you said, they're going to be without some of their weapons, but they do have other ones available. But getting after Tom is always the number one caveat to beating him. The New York Giants did it twice in the Super Bowl. They knew what they had to do, and this is when the dogs need to come out. I think that they'll do it. I think they win 20-17. Hall?
Man, you guys are.
Oh, my MVP.
Confident.
Sorry, MVP's J.D. McKissick.
Ooh, I like that.
The only reason Hall, the only reason I'm doing it is because of what I said to Reed a couple weeks ago.
Oh, no. Well, look, you saw what the Saints did to Tom Brady and the Bucs last weekend. Upset him down in, I think it was New Orleans, I can't remember. But the way to beat him was get after Tom Brady, get him off his spot, get a couple turnovers, and convert on a short field. So that's the path for Washington to be even anywhere close in this game. Me personally, as much as it's crazy because my brain is saying this is one of those games where Washington pulls out every single year. They pull out that one game where it's like, why and how?
It was Pittsburgh last year.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's like why and how did you beat that team? So my brain is telling me, my heart's telling me that's
my
what it's
mind
is
telling me no.
But my brain is saying it's going to be a close game. I think that it's going to be a 3.5 quarter game. I think that last half of that fourth quarter, Tom Brady goes into TB12 GOAT mode. Just all of a sudden goes on like that crazy, converts third and whatever 3 different times on the drive, 12, 13 play drive to close us out. I'll go Tampa Bay 32, Washington 27.
I like that. Last question. I didn't see 703 UT Proism. She's a fellow Hokies fan. She has a question for us. Real quick, guys. How many sacks will Tim Settle have on Sunday?
Tim Settle.
That's a good question.
I think he's going to have at least a half a sack. The reason being, without Montez Sweat, they're going to be using a lot of the interchangeable guys, moving them around a lot. I think Tim Settle will have the ability to get some, and he's a great interior pass rusher. That's how you're going to beat Tom. I think we'll get a half sack.
We get a lot of people saying, if you watch the tape, and I'm sure you have watched plenty of it, Kyle and Hall, from that last matchup against Tampa Bay, if you had a guy like Matthew Ioannidis in that rotation, helping guys like Deron Payne out, they would have gotten to Brady a lot more than they would have. So we're going to finally get to see if all these conspiracy theories about why we should have won are going to come to fruition. But I think I think Settle can get a sack. I think Settle probably at least get a sack.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I think that he'll at least have a half a sack, if not a whole full sack himself. Like you said, the strength of our pass rush has been up the middle with John Allen, Ioannidis, Payne here and there, and then also Tim Settle. So the way to beat Brady is to push that pocket in and get him off his mark. So again, if any type of path to beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, is going to start with Tim Settle, John Allen, and those boys up front.
Yeah, one thing Washington, they've lost contain a lot of times. Quarterbacks will be able to run for first downs on them on long distances. It's not going to happen against number 12, sir. That's a bridge. I mean, not a bridge. That's a train, and it takes a lot to get that train to start moving. Parker, I can't thank you enough for coming on and joining us for this episode, brother. You're hosting Sidelines Washington. We love interacting with you, having you on the pod, sir. You're one of the best podcasters out there.
Another day one guest.
Yes, sir. And if you'd like to, just in case there's anybody watching that does not follow you already, would like to follow you and subscribe to your channel and follow you on social media, plug your stuff in.
Hey, man, I have no problem answering the bat signal. Like Hall said, day one. So it's always a pleasure cutting up with you guys. It's always, like I said, always fun. Shout out Mike Reed. Miss you, man. Love you. Hope everything's going well with you as well.
Don't talk about it.
He said don't talk about it?
Yeah, he was supposed to be here tonight. He said he was going to be here late, of course. That's why I was just like, all right, let's go, Hall.
Well, nonetheless, it's been fun talking football with you guys. And as you said, if you haven't already subscribed to Silence Washington podcast, hosted by me and Mr. Rio Robinson, host of Raw Talk, you can find us on all social media at Sidelines_WFT. Got a huge guest coming on Monday, player with the organization. Really pumped to get that going. So make sure you guys check that out. And of course, rate, subscribe, do all that good stuff. But thanks again, guys.
Of course, brother. Pleasure to have you on. All right, everybody. We will see you guys again on Monday. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
And
I'm Hamlett.
And we'll see you guys on Monday. Hopefully Reed will be there. Not sure, but we'll see. All right, everybody. Have a good weekend. Stay safe. Hopefully Washington pulls out the upset. Washington football. Woo! Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kyle. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. And if you liked what you saw, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you get notified when anything new is uploaded to the channel. Also, we just launched theburgundyzone.com. You can go there and find all of our latest news, articles, and the latest episodes that are uploaded. Again, we also have the Discord chat server, where all of our VIP folks are in, like Andy Burrows, Scott Hartley, Sergio Martin is in there as well. Don't miss out on the Discord chat server. Go and check that out. Until next time, everybody, Washington football. Woo!